The Oklahoma City Thunder get a big win over the Dallas Mavericks to punch their ticket to Vegas. Luka labored, SGA dominated, and how the new look Thunder were able to overcome Dallas.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. On today's show, brought to you by Game Time. Go check out the Game Time app today, because when you do, you can create your account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. We're discussing the Thunder's win over the Dallas Mavericks, punching their ticket to Las Vegas. SGA dominates this game. Luka really struggled, and Isaiah Hartenstein proved to be a massive addition for a Thunder team that still hasn't seen itself full just yet. First and foremost, the NBA got exceptionally lucky that this was the bracket for the second ever NBA Cup semifinal. They got lucky in year one when LeBron and the Lakers went and won the cup and kind of gave some legitimacy to it. When you see LeBron celebrate it, when you see the Lakers raise a banner, like that stuff helps. It helps the league get this off the ground. But then you get this format in the quarterfinals where you have the Thunder playing the Mavericks, which is a genuine, organic rivalry. You have the Rockets and Warriors with all of those storylines, including the fact that the Rockets just cannot beat the Warriors for some reason. And then out east, you have a gutty Magic team that fell short against Milwaukee. And you have tonight Trey going back into the Garden where he was really famous or infamous if you're in New York. So this set up perfectly, and tonight was a great first night of the quarterfinals where you saw the Mavericks Thunder game show some higher intensity. Now, I think that was a little bit of both, right? It's a little bit of the NBA Cup, the stakes, the money. Like a lot of these Thunder players are on their first contract, so the added financial gain from this is still a massive deal. I don't know anyone who would brush off an additional $500,000, but especially not on their first contract in the NBA. So that's big, but also you're going to test yourself against the Mavericks. And Shai talked about that of he's thought about this series every day, and that it's something where you want to go win the West. You want to go win a championship. The Mavericks just won the West. You're going to need to get through Dallas. And we spent this whole week so far previewing a Mavericks team that has had the Thunder's number for the majority of the last season. And in this game, you had Luka, you had Kyrie, no PJ Washington, no Chet, two very important to varying degrees players for each side. So this was just a fun night. And the NBA, I think, really won tonight as the Thunder won in this game, 118-104. The Thunder handled every single Mavericks run with great maturity. The Mavericks got out to an 8-0 start. It was their largest lead of the night, one of their few leads, only 2 ties and 5 lead changes, all coming in the first quarter. And the Mavericks got out to that run, and the Thunder didn't blink. And the Mavericks cut that lead down inside double figures in the fourth quarter, a once 20-point lead. And the Thunder didn't blink. They just kept coming against Dallas. 5 lead changes, 2 ties. The Thunder won the rebounding battle 52-44, which is super impressive whenever you factor in the makeup of each team, where the Mavericks always had a center on the floor. The Thunder did not, but it was in large part due to Kenrich Williams, who we're going to talk about, who had a great night. The Thunder forced Dallas into 18 turnovers. OKC only commits 13 of their own. The Mavericks shot 47% from the floor, 41% from three, 68% from the free throw line. OKC shot 45, 40, and 85. The biggest difference in this game was the defense. The Thunder made the Mavericks work for everything. And I think the Thunder executed their playoff game plan and got a win. And I know it was frustrating for Thunder fans in the playoffs where you lose in 6 games The point differential was 0 in that series, and it was a hard fought battle. But strategically, the Thunder did everything it did in the playoffs to an nth degree in this one, where it was high ball pressure for Luka. You're double teaming him every single time down the floor. You're blitzing him off screens. And yes, you were susceptible. A large part of that 8-0 run, guess what it was? It was picking up Luka really high. Luka makes a great read, either with a phenomenal jaw-dropping skip pass to the corner or dumping it to Lively. Lively then makes a good processing decision in the short roll, and the Mavericks could create advantages that way. And that's what happened for the majority of the night. Now, here's where it was different than the playoffs. The Mavericks didn't get some magical game from PJ Washington, and PJ would have made a massive difference in this game with how the Thunder were guarding Luka. But Luka labors his way to 16 points. He was stuck on 2 points for the majority of this contest, but 16 points, 11 boards, 5 assists, 4 steals, and 6 turnovers is the worst game Luka's ever played. Kyrie had a ho-hum night by his standards. The only player who you can look at and say, man, he was playing way above his skis would be Najee Marshall, who had 19 off the bench. But even Najee, it was just all repeatable stuff. But I think that's where you get to the crux of the issue. I think every time that you see an NBA player get a layup line 3 or go uncovered on a backdoor cut, your guttural reaction to that and your immediate reaction to that is just, oh my gosh, what terrible defense. What are the Thunder doing? Right. But in order to cut the faucet off of Luka Doncic and in order to have him play 40 minutes where he's a minus 14 and just dreadful offensively, you have to send that added attention. You have to pick him up really high, be physical with him, blitz him off screens, and do what the Thunder did tonight. What the Thunder did better in this game than they did in the postseason was that they flew out to the corners really well. It started, in the first quarter, different verse, same as the first, where the Mavericks quickly got 7 corner threes in the first quarter, and they were generating those looks that they wanted. But Alex Caruso checks in, and he made a difference. Like, this is why you go get Alex Caruso. This is stuff you could not do when you had Josh Giddey. Everybody on the floor can defend. Look at who played and who didn't play, right? Like, Wiggins only played 9 minutes. AJ Mitchell, got 10. And those two guys are not bad defenders. They're just not defenders to the caliber of Kenrich, to Caruso, to Kaysen, to Lou, to J-Dub. Right? Those are who got the lion's share of the workload. Because they were able to be physical, they were able to be athletic. So it was a maximized version of how the Thunder played Dallas in the playoffs. Because in this game, you also had no backup center. And instead of playing Jay Will, who's on the sidelines in street clothes, you got the very best version of Kenrich Williams, who was a plus 17 in his minutes as the center, who was the very best small ball 5 on this Thunder roster, which was a key difference from the playoffs. You have Caruso, a key difference from the playoffs, who is the best defender as a guard that can scale up and contest with bigs down low and make bigger wings struggle. And of course, what he can do, just heads up on a player of his size. So you just got the very best you could from this Thunder defense, and it wasn't always pretty, but it was enough. And that's where, if you're a Thunder fan, you're looking at this series and saying, well, when this gets ran back this summer, which I think it will, I think that you'll see the Mavericks and the Thunder play in the Western Conference Finals. Well, by then, knock on wood, you'll have Chet Holmgren and Hartenstein, and you'll be able to go blow for blow, center for center between Gafford and Lively. And you'll really take control of the series. And if you're a Mavericks fan, you're saying, well, look, it was a competitive game for the majority of this contest. The Thunder had a back-breaking third quarter. And who knows, if PJ Washington could play, a guy that is uniquely designed to hit his open corner threes whenever you see those high processing plays from Luka and Lively in the short roll, and who can take advantage of a smaller matchup, then the Mavericks feel like this could be a lot different. And that's where it goes back to what we said on Monday and Tuesday morning. We won't know anything after this game. I still believe that because these teams will look entirely different. Like, I know that PJ Washington in the ecosystem of NBA, like fandom and social media and things like that, is a marginal player. He is a pivotal player for what Dallas does. And it's became a running joke that he has his career nights against Oklahoma City. Go back and look at that November game. He had 3 open shots all night. He was still dominant. He still had a career night because he can exploit those matchups whenever you have to send smaller guys out to after you swarm the paint, after you swarm Luka. There's only so much you can do. And I think that while it was frustrating for fans to hear Mark say this in the postseason, it's 100% right. It's the NBA. To be a team as good as Dallas, to be a team as good as Oklahoma City, you're going to have to surrender something. And what you're hoping to surrender is something that has a chance to fail. No offense to PJ Washington. There's a chance that PJ Washington plays like PJ Washington does in November against, the Spurs, and not the PJ Washington that you saw all last postseason. This is a guy who's a career 35% three-point shooter a season this year, which is one of his better years, 36% from three in this season alone. So but you know that if you did not give that attention to Luka, he would be off the charts phenomenal. Because when they did try to play Luka heads up, the Thunder, yes, you're right, they are the most equipped to defend Luka and Kyrie. If you wanted to play a straight 1-5 defense, don't send pressure, don't blitz them, don't hedge on screens, just play ball. Yes, the Thunder have better defenders than most. But look at the possessions Luka got when you did do that. You can think of a couple misses in your head, one over Cason Wallace, where Cason made Luka Doncic work really, really hard. And Luka did miss a shot or two in that stretch. But that's not repeatable. You cannot count on that. You cannot think that that's going to happen through the course of a series. And so that's where you start to list out this pecking order of who do we think won't have a breakout season. And if they do, well, then you tip your cap. And that's what you did last postseason. You tipped your cap to PJ Washington. The Celtics play the Mavericks the exact same way defensively as OKC did. The Celtics won the series in pretty convincing fashion because PJ was not to the elite level that he was in OKC and that he was to date in that postseason. So I think that this was not some aha moment for the Thunder. Like nothing, they didn't do anything different than they did in that really competitive 6-game series. They just now have the tools with Caruso in place of Giddey and the step forward from Cason, in his second season to play that strategy in a much more sound way. They also got an MVP level performance from Shai. Like this was a one-of-one type of game from Shai where he was on another planet while Luka had his worst night. And that could probably just summarize the game right there because it is a star-driven league and your star thoroughly and forcefully outplayed Luka Doncic. We'll talk about that coming up. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at FanDuel. Go check out FanDuel today to get started. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get in the middle of a game and you just think that you know what's going to happen because of how the game's trending, you can hop in and place the bet. You can also place the bet in advance, spreads, player props, over-unders, all that good stuff. You can tackle the NFL season by placing that first $5 bet, getting $150 back in bonus bets if you win. But if you're only an NBA fan, do not worry. They have you covered as well. In tonight's NBA quarterfinal in Houston, the Rockets are 2-point favorites over Golden State. The winner of that game will go to Vegas to play the Oklahoma City Thunder. So you can go throw some shekels down on that to make it an even more interesting night of viewing. Go check them out today at FanDuel.com. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. This was a very fun game. It was what the NBA wanted the NBA Cup games to feel like. The fans were into it. The crowd was a playoff level crowd for the most part. I mean, we had the ref you suck chants, which only really come out for big environments and for big games in the NBA level, that is. And you got MVP level Shai. This was superstar stuff. This was best of the world type stuff from SGA. 37 minutes from him, a plus 22 in this game, 39 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, a block, 2 turnovers on his resume, 65% shooting from the floor, 5 for 9 from 3. 55% from beyond the arc. And Shai has this unique ability to where every three that he hits feels like a backbreaker. It feels like a monumental moment because you just are left with this sense of, well, how do you defend Shai? If Shai's going to take 9 threes and make over 50% of them, you can't leave him open from 3. You can't let him drive to the rim. So you can't play him too high and take away the 3. And you know what he can do in the mid-range. Where do you begin to pick Shai up on the floor and start playing defense? When do you send that additional help? Because if you send it too high and he slithers his way through that and there's no resistance on the back end, you're toast. You're absolutely toast. I thought that this was a dreadful night from the officials, honestly. He was 4 for 4 at the line. As a team, the Thunder shot 7 free throws, 6 for 7 at the line. On the other hand, Dallas shot 13 for 19. The officials let more things go than not. But you can go watch many a Thunder drives that should have ended in free throws. And they didn't. And it is in line with the Thunder having one of the worst free throw rates in the history of the NBA. And I don't know what they have to do to change it. And what I think they have to do is be more like Dallas. Now, they're not going to. The Thunder, as an organization, the players, and Mark, and the way that they talk and conduct themselves, and the way that they preach about these things, they're not going to. But the sad reality is, the free throw stuff, it's a difficult subject to talk about because the answer's right there. You have to play like Dallas does. Dallas is a fantastic team, top to bottom, at gamesmanship. And I don't think you should complain about that because it's what is required from you, from your coaches to your players. The NBA has made it a requirement. If you want to go to the free throw line, you have to work the refs. You have to have that element of acting, of selling contact. You have to have that element of influence where if you're wearing them down all game, they're going to eventually start to see what you're seeing and start to turn the tide that way. And the Thunder don't do that. That's the only other thing that it can be. Like, I don't think that there's some, league mandate to the officials not to call fouls. I don't think that there's some league mandate to mess over the Thunder. The Thunder lead the NBA in drives for the billionth straight season. These drives are leading to shots. They're also leading to pass outs in traffic, which is where you get your hand caught in the cookie jar. You get fouls that add up to be put in the bonus to then go to the free throw line, which also is not happening for Oklahoma City. There are physical players, like the way that J-Dub drives to the rim, he gets ping-ponged around, and it's like he's playing bumper cars down there. Doesn't matter, doesn't get a call. Shai, who everybody talks about drawing free throws, another game with just 4 attempts from him. Like, the only thing this Thunder team is not doing is they're not wallowing on the ground. Like, they've just been shot from the grassy knolls. They're not doing that. They're not getting technical fouls. They're not chirping in the ear of the officials enough. Like, and it's a sad reality, but it remains true. The teams who do those things and do those things well get rewarded. And none are better at it than Dallas. Like, Dallas is a fantastic team at working the officials. And that's not a slight. I can already hear the Mavericks fans who click on this typing away. It's actually a massive compliment to the Dallas Mavericks because they do it without letting it influence their game. And that's where they've gotten better. Like in Luka's earlier career, he let it influence the game where he'd stay back for a whole possession. They're doing it now where they're not sacrificing anything. They didn't get teed up tonight to give away points. They didn't do anything dramatic, but they did enough to sway the officials. And that's part of the game. Like it or not, it's part of the game. It's like NIL in the transfer portal for college football. Like if you can bemoan it all you want to. You can try to close your eyes to it and ignore it all you want to. If you want to be successful, you have to do it. And it's the same thing here. Because at this point, what else is there? I don't believe that there's some conspiracy theory. So if there's no conspiracy theory and the Thunder are doing everything else that they need to do on the court, that's all that's really left. That's it. That's all that's really left. But Shai, what was just unstoppable at getting to his spots. He always had an answer, like for the Mavericks run. And again, they went on a run to trim this from a 30-point lead. I'm sorry, from a 20-point lead down to a 9-point lead, and he responded in a big way. Hartenstein was massive in this game. Literally, he had a putback dunk where you could almost see Daniel Gafford caught off guard by it, like looking over and like, who on the Thunder could have that kind of a putback dunk? Yeah, the Thunder have a traditional center now. He had an and one that was really physical. He had 13 rebounds, 10 points, another double-double for him, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. I thought that it was good to see him be able to go out on an island and force a pass from Luka. There's a cat and mouse game of that, though, because once you do pull Hartenstein out, theoretically it should have gotten the Mavericks more attempts than it did from Gafford and Lively to then dominate at the rim. Lively finishes with 4 field goal attempts. 4. Gafford finished with 4 field goal attempts. That's a testament to these things that we talked about in the first segment changing, because the Thunder were doing everything to pull their big out onto the perimeter and have you turn into guards. The guards you were turning into, though, their caliber of defense changed. You're now turning into Caruso. You're turning into Kenrich Williams. You're turning into Lou Dort and Kaysen and these bigger, more physical, better defenders. But they still should have shot the ball more. I think that it could have done the Mavericks some good there. But nonetheless, Shai said it best after the game. What changes for the Thunder when they have a more traditional center? Everything. Like everything changes. This game was absolutely different. And again, here's the angle for the Thunder fans to close their eyes and envision a game in which you have both Chet and Hartenstein. Not only can you play them together, you can play them separately and always cover a game in rim protection and the gravity that the bigs have. They do it in different ways, right? Hartenstein wipes you away with a screen and now takes you out of the play, and he rolls to the rim and has that push shot. And he can also be a playmaking hub in the high post. Chet, he has a really good screening game. His screening game isn't as bruising and mesmerizing as Hartenstein's is, but it's as gravitational as Hartenstein's is, because if he's picking and popping, you're not ignoring Chet, and if you do, you're in for a world of hurt. So he has that pull to free up his guard play the same way Hartenstein does, and you get a full 48 minutes of that. It'll be really hard to recover from for a Thunder team that was able to swell up a 20-point lead over Dallas. And without that third quarter explosion, as you saw by Dallas's furious fourth quarter run, this is a whole different game. This is a whole different game. So this is a fun matchup, and I cannot wait for the summertime where I really believe you're going to get Thunder Mavericks conference finals, 7 games. Coming up, let's talk more about this contest, including J-Dub. Have the Mavericks, do they have the best game plan for stopping Jalen Williams? But first, I want to say right now, about our good friends over at Game Time. Go check out Game Time today. It's the best ticketing app for you to use, especially if you're an NBA fan, which I know you are, because you're listening to this podcast. In the NBA, we all know that you never quite know what you're going to get, right? Like, is my favorite player playing? Is my least favorite player playing? For example, tonight, PJ Washington, questionable up until the coaches spoke to the media about an hour before the game. Perhaps that was going to sway your decision to go to this game or not. That's where Game Time comes in. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Get the verdict on your favorite players before you buy, and that way you can still have their lowest prices guaranteed. Game Time is so confident in that claim that they will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower ticket, which you will not. The seat view from your seat is fantastic for going to road arenas. Perhaps you want to go to Vegas and you've never been to Vegas. They're not playing in the same arena as they play in Summer League. You've probably never been there. You can get a panoramic view from your seat on the app before you buy, so you know exactly what you're getting into. All-in pricing, you toggle that feature on, and it shows you the exact total up front. No surprise fees at checkout. I love that about Game Time. So go download the Game Time app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions do apply. Again, use code LOCKEDONNBA when you create your account, and you get $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Jalen Williams had a bad night by his standards. I mean, he has elevated to the point where the box score is going to look pretty. And 18 points, 7 boards, 4 assists, a block, like that looks really pretty. But the 4 turnovers, the 38% shooting from the floor, the 0 for 3 from 3, that looks pretty ugly. All in 32 minutes, all a +5 for J-Dub. And I just think that there are certain teams where even the brightest of the bright have trouble against. Like SGA was the MVP runner-up and had a strong argument to win MVP last year. He struggled against the Los Angeles Lakers as this entire team did. Like there are certain matchups like that where I think that the Mavericks are so uniquely designed to give J-Dub fits is by having these long physical wings that they can put on him, like Najee Marshall being put on him, like PJ Washington when he's healthy being put on him. Quentin Grimes is a really good defender. Klay Thompson, you have him as well. And then so you start with these physical wings that can really deter him from getting to his spots in the mid-range. And if you somehow get through those guys, they're always having that rim protection to deter you from the rim. And you take those things away, it can quickly become a frustrating night for a guy whose game is predicated on those two things, getting to the mid-range and getting to the rim. Where I think that this is not a long-term concern, more so a short-term concern, is that he's a young player, and young players have these light bulb moments. And I wonder if Jalen Williams had a light bulb moment. He's seen the pictures now through a whole playoff series. I would say for J-Dub specifically, you throw out that November game. You can do it entirely if you want to for everybody because it was a weird game where the Thunder had J-Dub playing center. But for him specifically, throw out that November game. So you've had a whole playoff series plus this game of him playing this second scoring option wing player. And these light bulb moments can happen at any time. And I think that happened for J-Dub. We won't be able to test this theory until February, but I think that it happened for J-Dub. Because in the fourth quarter, we just rattled off a pretty ho-hum box score. But in that fourth quarter, 11 minutes, he went 5 for 10. He had 10 points. He had a rebound and an assist. The difference in the fourth quarter for J-Dub and the first 3 was his own physicality level. I think now you understand what is required of playing Dallas. A defense capable of playing on a string, a defense capable of getting up under you, and a defense that does a great job of being physical without getting citations. And so after feeling it out for the 3 quarters, you saw J-Dub bring what was necessary to the table and muscle his way inside, get to his spots. And it changed the game for him. It changed the game for the Thunder as well. So I do think that the Mavericks are one of the teams that can give J-Dub trouble. After the fourth quarter, I'm really curious to see what this looks like moving forward. And I think that having Hartenstein and Holmgren, whenever that comes to be, really helps J-Dub more than anyone because of that screening gravity for different reasons, as we already illustrated. He needs it for the separation purposes more than anybody else on this roster because he's going to have the ball the second most. And we've seen Shai dominate that playoff series. He was the best player on the floor in the playoffs. And you saw him dominate this game. Like he needs the help in separation. And the centers can do that for you. Him becoming more physical can do that for you. Lou Dort, 3 for 7 from 3, had a play that looked like a train wreck and then avoided disaster in the mid-range in the paint on this mid-range pull-up jumper to go 4 for 10 overall. 11 points, 2 assists, 6 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block. He was fantastic at defending Luka Doncic, and that is a very tall task, and it's why Luka's given him over the years plenty of flowers in his defense of Luka. Kenrich, you cannot say enough about the 17 minutes from Kenrich. Without Kenrich Williams, this game is not won by Oklahoma City. 3 for 4 from the three-point line, a couple rebounds, a couple assists, 3 steals, played that small ball lineup, small ball center position better than anybody has this season and better than anybody could play this season that is rostered on Oklahoma City. And one of the best small ball centers there is Kenrich Williams whenever he is healthy. He certainly looks healthy. He certainly looks spry again after a season riddled with injuries a year ago. That's great to see. It was good to see the Thunder get this win over Dallas because it becomes a theme or like if you would have lost this game, it would have became an even bigger story than it already was. And it was already starting to kind of trend and get off the rails a bit. So it's good to see OKC get this win. From that standpoint, cannot wait. Again, I stay firm to what we said Monday and Tuesday. I don't think that this changes anything big picture wise, but it adds some fuel to an organic rivalry. The NBA is in desperate need of rivals. Let Tim McMahon tell you how much that these two teams have it out for one another. I mean, if you've heard Tim McMahon talk, period, he's brought up the locker room stuff from Dallas after their win in November. Of course, you know what happened in the playoffs. These two teams, quick neighboring teams, quick trip down I-35. This is going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch this rivalry progress. This was another chapter in it. Coming up on this show, we'll have Brennan Rabar tomorrow talking this game, talking Vegas. Friday, we'll have a preview of the NBA Cup semifinal for OKC and where we're at on the Final Four. Saturday, of course, we're going to recap the Cup game. So we'll have all that for you here on Locked On Thunder. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast from, including on YouTube. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.